So today I want to talk about sports talk radio. I've been listening to sports talk radio since I was a kid. I probably didn't really listen to it until I was maybe about 11 or so, 11 or 12. I used to watch ESPN when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and ESPN got me addicted to sports. But I actually didn't listen to sports talk radio until one time my dad was um, just playing the radio, and he played it. He played sports talk radio. The radio. I didn't know the radio had sports talk because I used to think radio just had music. Um, and I was there's actually sports talk on there. I'm from South Florida, and one of the local stations is called WQAM. WQAM was the first one I heard. When I was a later teenager, I listened more to ESPN radio. But at the time, in podcasts like the Bill Simmons podcast and stuff, BS Report, what it was called. But at the time, WQAM was the local one I would listen to. It was just a local sports show. They talk about the Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, Florida Marlins, and all the South Florida teams, Florida Panthers, whatever. I don't watch hockey, but you know what I mean. Um, so and then that was when I was like 11 or 12. I'd listen to the local sports talk one, and I realized I actually like the ESPN one better with Colin Cowherd and Scott Van Pelt and all those national announcers. Doug Gottlieb. Doug Gottlieb wasn't very good, but he was on there anyways. Um, Mike in the morning. They had Mike and Mike in the morning on the ESPN one. But anyways, so I was actually turned on WQAM again. I've actually moved out of my hometown to a different place, different city, to a completely different location. But on the internet, I can still hear WQAM, and it's still a fun station to listen to. A lot of times, I don't really have anything to do, so I just find things to listen to pass the time. Life is really confusing sometimes, and sometimes all you really want to do is just pass the time. And so I remember listening to WQAM um, when I was younger, and I was like 12, 13 years old. And then I just turned it on again a couple weeks ago and started listening to it again. It's so good. There's like a CBS national show on the middle of the night or on weekends, and I think there's like national shows on the middle of the night. I think weekdays too. And Joe Rose is in the morning. Joe Rose is also the local guy in charge of um, the local news. He's a local sports news guy um, on NBC6 South Florida. Um, he's a sports guy on there, and he also has a radio show on WQAM, and he still sounds exactly the same. I must have listened to him like 20 years ago, and he still sounds exactly the same as he was 20 years ago. You almost think it's a recording of a show that's like 20 years old, but in reality, it can't be because they're talking about today's stories. So Joe Rose sounds exactly the same as he did 20 years ago, but it's still a, it's still uh, it still sounds exactly the same, but it's not a recording. So because they're talking about what's happening today, the Dolphins signing some offensive linemen. They're not trying to get Deshaun Watson, and they're satisfied with Tua Tagliover. How do you ever say his name? Tua. They're satisfied with Tua as quarterback. So they're talking about today's news, but this Joe Rose sounds exactly like he did 20 years ago. You know, he sounds exactly like he did 20 years ago. So I thought that was kind of funny how Joe Rose sounds exactly the same. Um, it's funny time changes and some things stay the same. Like WQAM sounds exactly like it did 20 years ago when I used to listen to it. And it's just funny. It's just funny how your dad can teach you things about how to survive in life and how to find enjoyment, find meaning from simple things like listening to the radio, and you can enjoy simple things and have that be a big part of your life, and have these people teach you how to be authentic, charismatic, interesting, cool, confident, whatever. And you can have these radio show hosts be like your role model, and they can be whatever you want them to be. They can teach you how to speak, how to be confident, how to articulate your arguments in a sports debate. I used to love debating sports with my classmates when I was in school because I'd listen to, we'll watch ESPN on TV, or I listen to local or national sports radio shows. You know, I like the national ones too. I used to listen to Colin Cowherd, Mike and Mike in the Morning, Scott Van Pelt, and Ryan Russillo. Um, there was a lot of good radio shows on when I was a kid. But that WQAM was the local one, and I'm gonna start listening to that more and more. Because I like hearing like guys who aren't like super glossy, super like I don't know, like Colin Cowherd's great too, but Colin Cowherd's too he's a little bit too polished. He's extremely polished. Whereas the local guys are very unpolished. They're just like some relatively knowledgeable people about sports. They're just like relatively knowledgeable. I mean, they can hold any conversation they want, but they can hold a conversation about sports better than I can, or I ever could. But it's just funny how like they're not that polished, but they have their own radio show and they can still do what they want. It kind of reminds me of what I want to do on YouTube, which is talk about things I don't even know that much about, and just discuss things, discuss different topics. I don't really watch sports anymore. You know what's funny? I've always enjoyed the discussions about sports and the statistics about sports more than I enjoyed actual watching sports. I enjoyed watching ESPN more than I enjoyed watching a game. I liked watching SportsCenter, PTI, Around the Horn, First Take. I'd read the box scores for the MLB games or for NBA games or for NFL games. I'd read the box scores, and I would enjoy the box scores. I play fantasy football, and I enjoyed fantasy football more than I actually enjoy watching football. And I never played sports because I wasn't athletic enough. So I know it's kind of weird. But anyway, that's my story. I'm probably still going to listen to some WQAM, some local sports talk, because a lot of ways I've got nothing better to do, and I still need to fill up my day with things to do, and so I'm probably going to keep listening to that. Even though it's probably more productive uses of my time, I still want to learn how to be a better speaker. I still want to learn how to be a more interesting person. And those guys are pretty interesting, even though they're not rocket scientists. I like them. I've also been listening to my jazz playlist on Spotify and my other playlists on Spotify. I'll keep listening to playlists on Spotify. I'm not sure what I want to do today, but we'll see what happens. Do you ever listen to your local sports talk radio show? Let me know in the comments below how you feel about your local radio stations. Please subscribe to my channel to be part of the community, and please like this video. It really helps the channel out a lot. And by the way, there were other local radio stations too. There was one that had what's his name before he got to ESPN. Anyways, some of them were there were some local sports talk radio stations that were bigger, and there were some that were smaller than WQAM. WQAM was like a medium-sized one. There was some that actually had a lot more listeners, and there was some that actually had a good amount less listeners. But WQAM was like the middle-sized sports local talk show. So thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye. I just want to make that note. I don't know why. Just something I thought about. Anyway, whatever. Okay, bye.